Ever forget where you got a bottle of wine or why it mattered? One of today's sponsors, Pour Memory, helps you capture the stories, people, and moments behind every bottle. Jot notes on their labels, track them in the journal, or use their app. Check it out at pourmemory.com and make every bottle unforgettable. Interested in learning about wine, but not sure where to start? You're in the right place. Welcome to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I'm your host, Haley Bowman, and I'm so glad you're here. I'm a wine enthusiast turned wine educator and founder of the Seattle-based wine tasting business, Cork and Fizz. It is my goal to build your confidence in wine by making it approachable and lots of fun. You can expect to learn everything from how to describe your favorite wine to what to pair with dinner tonight, and so much more. Whether you're a casual wine sipper or a total cork dork like myself, this podcast is for you. So grab yourself a glass and let's dive in. Hello and welcome back to the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. I am so glad to have you here. Today, I'm chatting with Katie Truscott. She is the co-owner of One Mill Road Winery up in the Okanagan Valley of British Columbia. And if you're still not sure where we are, that is in Canada. We are talking Canadian wines, basically north of Washington. So we are in Western Canada. Katie and her partner Ben run this small, family-focused winery that's really all about expressive Pinot Noir and Chardonnay and letting their little corner of Naramata, which is in the Okanagan, letting that little corner of Naramata shine. What I love about Katie is that she brings both the wine nerd side, she has her WSET diploma, and the real hands-on, let's actually make wine, sell wine, all of that good stuff. She's thoughtful, down to earth, and has such a cool perspective on what it takes to build a small winery from the ground up. If you've ever been curious about Canadian wine or what life looks like behind the scenes at a tiny, quality-driven winery, you're going to enjoy this one. I actually first found Katie because I was looking for a Canadian winemaker to bring in to the Cork crew for a Q&A earlier this year. I actually have a few folks in the Cork crew that are from Canada, and since, the start of the crew, I've mainly brought in U.S. winemakers because it's easier for me to get in touch with them. But I knew I wanted to bring in somebody from Canada. And so I reached out to one of my Canadian wine friends on Instagram, that BC Wine Girl. If you're not following her already, you should. Even if you are nowhere near Canada, it's really cool to learn from her and learn about this region. But anyway, she recommended Katie and Ben of One Mill Road Winery. So I brought Katie to the Cork crew, and she had such really interesting, unique insight that I was like, hey, any chance you'd join me on the pod? And she said yes. So without further ado, let's get into that interview. Let's start with one of my favorite questions to ask pretty much any wine person, wine expert. How did you fall in love with wine?
Yeah, 2 words, 1 grape, Chenin Blanc.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah, definitely. I was living in South Africa from 2008 to 2018. And I started drinking a lot of Chenin Blanc, and I really was like, this is delicious. What is this? And of course, when you start studying sort of the history and background of Chenin Blanc, it really just brought up a lot of fascination and curiosity for me about the South African wine world. And yeah, that was kind of it, was that grape. And it triggered a curiosity in me. And I also really wanted to be able to describe wine. I heard other people describing wine. I was jealous of them. I didn't know how they were able to articulate flavors and feelings that are evoked from wine. And so, yeah, I dove in to start learning about it from there.
Cool. I love it. Okay. So getting into that, I know this is this is a big ask, but can you kind of walk us through the journey from, first falling in love with wine, and that Chenin Blanc, and then, the different major milestones that got you to now owning One Mill Road with your partner?
Yeah, what a wild ride. So yeah, it was 2016 that I sort of started getting curious. And I looked online and saw that there was a course called WSET being offered in Johannesburg. It was a Saturday for level 1. That's all it would take. So I went and registered, and it just kind of blew up from there. And after that, I took level 2 and dove straight into level 3. and decided to also start talking about wine through Instagram. So through social media. And at the time in 2016, no one was really doing it in South Africa, was sort of like reviewing wines through Instagram or talking about the journey of learning about wine. So that grew really fast and that was really exciting. And with it came more opportunities to taste even more wine and go meet producers and attend trade shows and eventually even start writing blogs for a couple local magazines online. So it really presented a lot of opportunities as I started learning more and passing the courses. More opportunities kind of came with it. And so that happened very quickly within the span of 2 years from 2016 to 2018. And then I decided to jump in and do my WCT diploma, which takes around 2 years. And I started it in Cape Town. So I would fly back and forth from Johannesburg to Cape Town and attend these courses. And it was so exciting. And then life threw a bit of a curveball. I ended up moving back to the Okanagan Valley where I grew up in British Columbia, Canada, and moved away from South Africa. But as I got here, I continued studying for my diploma. So I enrolled to finish at the Napa Valley Wine Academy, where I finished my diploma. Took a while. COVID happened. Lots of stuff happened. So that took an extra amount of time. And it's also when I met Ben, my now life partner and business partner. He's been making wine since he was a teenager, primarily in Australia, and moved here to Canada around the same time that I moved back. We met through friends. And I mean, long story short, the opportunity to purchase a wine brand together came up in 2021 and sealed the deal in 2022. So yeah, just 2016 to now has been a wild ride. That very exciting.
Yeah, I love it. I'm curious, what did you do before wine? What took you down to South Africa?
Well, I moved to South Africa. That's where life took me with
Fair.
my previous life. So my ex-husband is a South African, and I moved out there in 2008 to be with him.
Okay.
And professionally, I have always done my own thing. So, but never in wine. So we had a construction and development business there and a green energy business. And that's what I did for the majority of my time. When I moved back to the Okanagan, I thought to myself, I've found this new passion. I've never felt so excited about a subject before. It's now or never. And that's when I hopped into the Okanagan wine industry and started working for a local winery called Kitsch Wines. And I was there for 5 years and through the process of eventually purchasing and taking over One Mill Road, which is what I now do full time.
Yeah. No, I love
Yeah.
it. It's always just so fascinating to hear like where people started because very few people that I've interviewed on this podcast start with like, oh yeah, I just, after high school I went to college and got a degree in viticulture and winemaking or something like that, or like, oh, my dad did it, so I decided to drop it. There's just like most people have I was doing this before and then wine kind of found me and I dove into it and fell in love with it.
Sort of how it happens, I think, for most people I talk to, right? You almost get
Yeah.
bit bug. And then, I mean, it's just the most fascinating subject and thing ever. Why wouldn't
Yes.
you dive straight in?
Right. I love it. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about One Mill Road. So this project is very grounded in family. I feel like anybody can tell that whether they've visited or even just going on your website. It's very clear. So it's very grounded in family, love, place. How does that emotional connection show up in your like day-to-day work or your decision making at One Mill Road?
Yeah, I mean, because we ground the business in our family and in a passion that we have for wine in the world of wine, the rest just comes so naturally. I mean, the branding and the wines just come straight from a place of passion and heart and hard work. So it's a very natural process. I don't have to think really hard about our marketing or putting our story out there because it really is just coming from this place of authenticity and passion and love for growing a business, that our kids can be a part of, that brings our family together, that shows hard work and determination, hopefully can pay off down the line, you know? And yeah, it's just like, it's essentially, I was thinking about it the other day when we get photos taken every year around harvest with our kids participating and taking part in it. It's like the best family photo album ever.
Yeah.
Are
Oh,
the
that's
best
so
like
sweet.
memories and keepsakes to have all those photos and that just rolls into our marketing.
Yeah, I love it. I'm sure a lot of people listening, this is always a fun one whenever folks work with their partner. What is it like working, day in, working at the winery with your partner?
Yeah, well, life is so busy for us, between the two of us, we have 5 kids in the family and having the business together allows us to spend lots of one-on-one time together in the name of work. So it's kind of nice, and doing something that we both are passionate about and love. So it's a really great way to spend time together. And now we're on our 4th harvest together and 4th vintage, and we still really like each other a lot. So it goes to show that it worked out okay. But when we took over One Mill Road, we were like, this is either going to be like the worst or best decision ever to work with your partner. And luckily, our passion for wine really kind of falls into different areas of the subject. So I love sales and marketing and branding and like storytelling and getting out there and pouring the wine and talking to people. And Ben just loves putting his head down and making it and kicking dirt, he'll call it, in the vineyard, and just being a part of that. So our passion kind of allows us to cover all subjects and all aspects of the business, which has worked out really well and in our favor.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds really nice. And I'm curious too, with your kids working there, do you see that they're taking an interest? Could you see them taking over the winery or being involved in wine? I know that many of them are probably too young for you to be like, that's too much to think
Yeah.
about right now.
Yeah, they're still pretty young, and they're busy with their own interests right now, but you never know. It's interest kind of comes and goes. They help out when they're asked and they like being a part of it most of the time, but time will tell if any of them want to get into it. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I love it. That'd be so fun. I mean, like you said, it's their choice, obviously, but it's like so cool to think about like starting that family generational, winemaking in Canada, where I'm sure that's not really a thing really yet because it's still fairly new industry.
Yeah, I mean, it's a young industry for sure, but going strong.
Yeah, I love it. All right. So I want to take a step back because I'm sure for a lot of folks listening, they may have never had wine from Canada and then specifically from the Okanagan Valley where you are from. So I kind of want to give like a little brief intro. I know it's a big ask again of like, there's a lot to winemaking in Canada, but for folks that are, coming new to this, how would you describe winemaking in the Okanagan? We'll go specific to Okanagan instead of all of Canada. That would be a little rude to do all of
Yeah,
that.
yeah, because, Canada is a massive country. We make
Yes.
wine on the East Coast, we make wine on the West Coast, not coast, but, East and West, we have various wine producing regions. But diving straight into the Okanagan, the Okanagan is really far north. So you get this like dramatic, diverse place to grow wine that's really, really fascinating. We've got super long growing days in the summer season and cool nights. So these really fantastic temperature swings. You can compare it to a number of places around the world, but it really is just so unique. And the growing region really centers around the Okanagan Lake, which is this deep glacial lake that runs for about 135 kilometers. And along that lake, you get so many microclimates. Different varieties work well at different parts of the lake. So depending if you're north of the lake or south of the lake, really determines what grows best. The soils change. Like it's just fascinating. We have, I don't know the exact number, but I believe there's at least over 80 varieties growing in the Okanagan Valley.
And
Don't
you'd say
quote me.
like those. No, that's okay. Don't worry. And you'd say
Yeah.
those, so those are like, we see a lot of diversity, but it's not necessarily that like all of them are growing in one place in the Okanagan. It's just because there is such a variety of climate and terroir within the region itself that you'll see them kind of in like different spots along the lake.
Absolutely. The North Okanagan, as you get closer up to the 50th parallel, this is where you're going to find your Rieslings, your very aromatic, fresh, acidic Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris. As you move down to the far south, that's where the temperature gets a lot warmer in the growing season. It's drier. It's more desert-like. You're going to find your more full-bodied reds, your Syrah, your Merlot. So there's a real shift as you go up and down the lake. It's a fascinating place to visit and a wonderful place to explore, but you can't do it in a day. You definitely, if you want to see it all and experience how wonderful it is and visit as many wineries as you can, you're definitely going to need at least a few days.
Yes. Okay. Can you tell us more specifically about the region where you grow your grapes and make the wine for One Mill Road?
Yeah, so we are based on the Naramata Bench, which is the sub GI of the Okanagan Valley. Does really, really well for Pinot Noir, but you will find all sorts of varieties kind of grown on the bench. But we focus on growing Pinot Noir and Chardonnay there.
Nice. I love
Kind
those.
of central Okanagan if you're looking. So we're about 20 minutes outside of a city called Penticton. And the Naramata Bench sits on bluffs that kind of trails the lake. And yeah.
I love it. So when I think Pinot Noir Chardonnay, like that region, there are a few like other wine regions around the world that come to mind. And I know obviously like Okanagan is its own. I'm not trying to like put it in a bucket, but I'm
Mhm.
curious like with thinking of wines that other folks might be familiar with, whether it's, I think of Oregon, the Willamette Valley makes a lot of Chardonnay, Pinot Noir. And then if we go Old World, you'll see it in Burgundy where they make, Chardonnay, Pinot Noir, and then going even further north in Champagne. Would you, using those as like baselines for folks that are familiar with those wines potentially, how would you describe the Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that you make at One Mill Road? I love producing this podcast for you every week. But here's the truth. It's not free. That's why I'm so grateful for sponsors like the following brands supporting me so that I can share everything I love about wine with you. If you're able, show them some support back. Thank you to Pour Memory, a brilliant way to capture the stories and moments behind every bottle of wine you enjoy, for sponsoring today's episode. One of my favorite things about wine isn't just the flavor, it's the memories it creates. If you're like me, sometimes the wines you love have nothing to do with the flavor and everything to do with the people you share them with and the moment you open them. That's exactly what Pour Memory helps you record. Pour Memory's labels stick on your bottles without leaving a residue, and the top layer goes into the journal after you enjoy it. You can track what you loved, who you shared it with, and what made it memorable. Plus, they have an iOS app so you can scan, track, and digitally journal your bottles on the go. Start capturing your wine memories because every bottle has a story worth remembering. Go to pourmemory.com and use code CORKANDFIZZ for 15% off your purchase. I'll be honest, I never really believed chocolate could pair well with wine until I partnered with Bon Chocolats for a local event. Rasha, the owner, created 4 incredible truffles that matched perfectly with the wines we were tasting. Bon Chocolats is a European-inspired chocolatier right here in the Seattle area, making beautiful bonbons and confections with fine chocolate and all natural ingredients. They make the perfect gift. Visit their local shop in Bothell or order online at bonchocolats.com and use code CORKANDFIZZ10 for 10% off.
Well, One Mill Road, I definitely say we aim for a more old world style. We pick based on like acidity and freshness, aiming for kind of that lower alcohol style. But it's different, for all the producers that are growing and making Pinot Noir in the Okanagan. First of all, where your vineyard is, but also stylistically, what kind of, style you want to go for. We are, really fresh, like fresh aromatics and looking at slightly earlier picking.
Okay, I like it. All right, so we're kind of thinking like old world style, but you could probably find a little bit of any style that you're interested in based on the producer as well, just within the region.
Yeah, I mean, there's just so many decisions involved in making wine that really, and it really just determines where the vineyards are in the Okanagan, where your Pinot vineyard is, which will tell you what you're going to achieve.
Yeah, I love it. I know I'm kind of like, I feel like I'm going backwards a little bit, but I was thinking about when you were talking about the region of the Okanagan and so interesting about the long days, because it reminded me of something that someone told me about, because just in Washington, right, we're further south than you, but we're further north than California. And I was talking to a winemaker who used to make wine in California and has now moved up to Walla Walla. And one of the things she talks about is the long days. And I'm like, oh, I guess like thinking if we go even further north, you've got even longer days to enjoy
Yeah.
in the summer. And then you will get to avoid, like she said, one of the benefits is that the sun isn't as direct, but it's for a longer amount of time. Would you say that that's true with those long days up in the Okanagan?
Yeah, absolutely. We get these like beautifully long growing days, which we need because the growing season is very short. So we will see sunsets at 10 p.m., in the heart of summer, but that only lasts so long. Right now it's winter and the sun's going down at 3:45. It's pretty wild. So it's really, really dramatic. But it is those long days that allow us to be able to grow and produce wines here.
Do you find that you pick the grapes earlier than a lot of wine regions in the Northern Hemisphere then because of that?
I mean, I think everyone sort of picks within the same range of bricks and ripeness. But yeah, we pick when it's ready.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Well, and thinking about, because I was kind of leaning into, or like leading into, what are the challenges, right, that face Okanagan winemaking? We've kind of already talked about while it's nice to have the long days, you have the much shorter growing season, right? And it's
Mhm.
probably even shorter than, I'm thinking, California to Washington, it shortens. And then I'm sure Washington to Okanagan, it shortens a little bit more. But what are some other challenges that you faced up in the Okanagan?
Yeah, well, I used a word earlier. I'll use it again is that this growing region is very dramatic. So, like these massive temperature swings. So, we had in the winter of 2024, the deep freeze where we went down to minus 27, and it just wreaked havoc on vineyards in the Okanagan. And we are still recovering from the losses that kind of came from that. But that being said, we've had a phenomenal vintage 2025 vintage here.
Yay!
So yes, we are making a comeback in the best way possible from that unfortunate scenario. But like in the summer when it gets so hot, we'll have sometimes 40 plus degree days. I'm talking in Celsius, by the
So
way.
that is warm. Yes, yes. It's good for the
Um,
folks that are in the US and where we're like Fahrenheit, what?
Right.
Huh?
You're like, "Oh." Yeah. But when we reach those temperatures, you really see the risk go up for wildfires, which has
Mm.
been a problem in our valley for a number of years, and it's not unique to us. That's a global issue, but wildfires is definitely a scary one, cold snaps, frost, and just with the dramatic seasons that we do have, it really is hard to determine what kind of yields we're going to get. So we'll have a year like this year where Ben and I had way more fruit than we anticipated. And that's what I kind of heard valley wide is everyone's estimations were far below what everyone actually got. Whereas we've had years where the yield is extremely low. So yeah, drama, 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 like swings in all directions. You never know what's going to happen next. Some years you have a bumper crop, some years you have nothing. Then you have the deep freeze, and you have the wildfires. I mean, and like I said, this is not unique to the Okanagan. This is a global issue, but those are ours.
Yeah, and it definitely hits the extremes. I mean, that is to have to worry on both ends, right? And because like for folks that don't know, like vineyards do go dormant in the winter, but they can only survive certain low temperatures. Like they will kind of, they go to sleep, but like if it gets too cold, it kills the vines. And then to have to replant or, you would lose all your crop the next year and then you have to kind of let it regrow out because the roots survive, but the like stems that go out or the arms that go out, the branches. There we go. That's
It's
the
the
word I'm looking
bud.
for.
It's the bud, the damage to the bud. So after
Okay.
our freeze, everyone kind of went out to try and assess just how bad the damage was, and that's where you're doing the bud dissections. And you look at the buds and you can see, you don't want to see a lot of black. You want to see green, but you've got primary buds, secondary buds, kind of within the bud that you can assess for damage. And once we went out and started looking at that, that's especially when everyone went, okay, we've got a massive problem here. That the problem with the deep freeze was that not only was it just really cold, because short bouts of really cold can sometimes be okay, but it was just too cold for too long. It was a number of days. There was no airflow happening. It was still, just everything kind of worked against us in those few days that happened.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, and it's interesting to like learn about because it's somebody who like drinks the wine, they wouldn't really know, right? They're just watching and they're like, why didn't they come out with as many wines? Or I know that year you guys got some wine or got some grapes from down in Washington in order
Yep.
to, be able to keep making some wine because there weren't a lot of grapes in the
Yeah.
Okanagan that year.
Yeah. Yeah. And that whole adventure opened up new friendships, new relationships. And suddenly the world got a little smaller, I think, for all of us. Washington growers, Oregon growers got to know Okanagan growers, and it was kind of cool in
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, speaking of challenges, I feel like this is more of a challenge on the on my side of things and people who are like me here in the US who want to drink your wine. Why is it so hard to find, and you obviously don't have all the answers. I'm curious from your
Yeah.
point of
Yeah.
view. Why is it so hard to find Okanagan wine outside of the Okanagan?
Yeah, I mean, kind of speaking back to yields as well, like, just the instability around yields. We don't make a lot of wine here. The majority of wineries that exist in the Okanagan Valley are small family-run businesses. So that's a volume, for distribution. And then we have a fantastic BC buyers market. We really do. BC loves drinking BC, and we are so thankful for that. So, a lot of our wine is just sold immediately and direct to our own market, which is great, but obviously not great for getting word out and sort of speaking to like the strength of our own market here, BC buying BC. But also, I think we do need a lot more kind of education and word to get out about Okanagan wine and about BC wine. Once we kind of go across the border and we start trying to put it on restaurant lists and stuff, we are essentially a minnow. It's a ton of work. I mean, you're a wine geek, but can you imagine people going into a restaurant and saying, I would really like a bottle of wine from British Columbia? It's a challenge. And so it's a uphill battle and we're a young region. We're still getting word out there about us, but I have a lot of hope for the future for BC wine on a global scale. As wineries enter into more international competitions and people start kind of talking about it, I think it's only going to grow. We're not shrinking. Yeah.
Definitely. I agree. And I think one thing, and let me know if this is something that comes to mind for me of like, how can we help, as somebody who wants to drink BC wine, wants to get it out there. And like you said, I know about it, but a lot of people don't know about it. One of the things we can do is start asking, like going to your wine shops, going to the restaurants and saying like, hey, do you have a BC wine? Do you have this? Could you get one for me? And like that lets them know the more that you can do that, it'll be like, oh, there is a demand for this. I should look into this. And there is some interest.
Yeah, 100%.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Cork and Fizz Guide to Wine podcast. You can learn more about One Mill Road Winery at their website, one, which is just the number one, millroad.ca. All right, my US friends, don't forget it ends in .ca because they are in Canada. For those that are in Canada, this is also where you can purchase their wines. Now, unfortunately, their wines are pretty difficult to get here in the US, but you can make an effort to change that by asking for Canadian wine or even specifically Okanagan wine at your favorite wine shop, wine bar, or restaurant. Let's get the world excited about Canadian wine. And of course, you can follow along on their journey. So if you're on Instagram, be sure to follow Katie at katies.wine.life. I will put the full handle in the show notes so you can click on that. You can follow Katie there, and you can follow One Mill Road Winery at number 1 Mill Road. And again, I'll put those in the show notes. It's kind of hard to tell when I'm talking, when I'm saying it out loud, how to type it in. If you love this episode as much as I did, you know what to do. Just please take a quick second, rate it, leave a review, share it with a friend. And if you'd like to show additional support for the show, you can become a paid subscriber. Click the link in the show notes and become a monthly supporter for $10 or less a month. This is not required. All of these episodes are available to you free, including my entire backlog. But if you wanted to show some more support, you can do that. You'll get a shout out in the next episode I record. Plus, if you choose the $10 per month option, you'll get to choose a topic for a future episode. In next week's episode, you will hear part 2 of my interview with Katie, how Katie's WSET diploma translates into real life in the cellar, the winemaking philosophy she and Ben live by at One Mill Road, and the behind-the-scenes decisions that help shape their Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. Plus, we have a very fun speed round with Katie where she shares her favorite wines, her dream wine destination, and one wine myth that she wishes we'd all stop believing. and so much more. Thanks again for listening, and if you want to learn more about wine, come follow me at Cork and Fizz on Instagram. Cheers!